Welcome to ChannelX TV, sponsored by Volo. Delighted to be joined today by Andrew from VentureForge to discuss our recent report, the UK Amazon Sellers Report for 2023, which looked at the shape of some of the top sellers on Amazon trading in the UK. So welcome, Andrew. How are you?
I'm very good, thanks, Chris. Thanks for having us on.
So, Andrew, tell us a little bit about who you are and what you do. You're the founder of VentureForge. So what made you start the business and what does VentureForge do?
Excellent, great question. I'll try and keep this concise because there's a fairly long story behind it. But the short answer is VentureForge is a full service agency working with sellers and vendors across Amazon, UK, Europe, North America. So we pretty much cover all Amazon services across those territories. What made us start the business? We were actually a general e-commerce consultancy when we founded VentureForge, and we pretty much covered everything apart from Amazon. And we worked with a number of B2B brands, probably a couple of years prior to COVID. And every piece of strategy work we did for them, we'd present back to our clients and say, Amazon is your biggest growth opportunity, then shake hands and walk away because we didn't have a service to back it up with. So quite naturally, we created that service, and within about 3 months, we pivoted the entire business to become an Amazon agency. And over the last 3.5 years, we've grown from a service within a broader agency to being a purely Amazon-focused agency now, one of the top-rated Amazon partners and recent winner of the Amazon Ads Awards for Europe, Middle East, and Africa. So a very natural journey from finding a true customer problem to creating a solution that has become our entire business.
So talk to me about Amazon services. You've just mentioned one, which is Amazon Ads, which is becoming, not just on Amazon actually, but on most marketplaces, becoming increasingly important. Which of the services do you think are kind of critical nowadays to success and which are kind of almost optional? I mean, FBA, for example, lots of retailers use it, but some of the very largest don't because they've got their own operations and they go with Seller Fulfilled Prime. But is FBA a prerequisite? Are sponsored ads a prerequisite? Should I be looking at sponsored ads or sponsored brands?
So very simple answer is I think almost everything is a prerequisite these days. I'll probably start with the most essential thing I would look at with any Amazon business is strategy. Even when we're in conversations with some of the most mature brands, and even just this week, we've been talking to a brand that does 11, 12 million turnover. If I mention the brands, everybody's heard of them. And even them at this point are still asking questions of how should we do Amazon? How should we go to market on Amazon? Should it be vendor? Should it be seller? Should it be hybrid? Once we've worked that bit out, how do we deliver it? Is that internal with a team? Is that external with an agency? Is it a mixture of both? How do we fulfill it? Vendor, that's obvious. But if it's seller, is it FBA? Is it FBM? Is it SFP? Is it seller flex? And then you get to, well, how do I grow it? And then it's, well, is it the organic side of Amazon? Is it the advertising side of Amazon? Where does third-party traffic come into play? So for me, the most essential service or the most essential thing to look at is strategy. Why and how should a brand go to Amazon? And why that's so important is that pretty much drives the outcome. You know, are you going to become profitable? The number of clients we still talk to that are saying turnover's fantastic, but profit's pretty damn challenging, almost always comes back to the strategy being wrong or the underlying operating model not being efficient for them. And to come to the broader part of the question of what services around advertising, how do you drive growth? Again, for me, they are all essential and all required. At the heart of Amazon and Amazon's success is sales velocity. The more you sell, the more visible you become. The more visible you become, the more you sell. So it's kind of an infectious little loop that you find yourself in. And if you're a brand on Amazon and you're only pulling 3 out of 4 available growth levers, so let's say you're thinking, I don't need to do advertising, or I don't need to overinvest in advertising, but I'm running a brand that has got everything else comparable, same product, all the other stuff's going great, and I do advertise, I'm driving greater sales velocity. I will ultimately outstrip you in terms of sales growth. So the short answer to your question is I think almost everything is a prerequisite. For Amazon these days, you can't leave any stone unturned. The strategy has to be solid. The distribution model has to be right for your business. Almost always it has to be prime. Now, whether that's FBA or whether that's SFP, normally what drives that is internal challenges. Where can a client hold stock? Do they need a single stock pool? Can they afford to put consignment stock into Amazon? Normally they're internal challenges, but almost always the prime badge is a prerequisite for any high volume and commoditized category on Amazon.
And looking at strategy, that's the main reason that we produced the UK Amazon Sellers Report. And by the way, if you're watching this wondering, look just below, and I'll put a link both on the blog post and on YouTube. So wherever you're watching this video, you should be able to see a link just beneath where you can actually download the report. And again, talking of strategy, in the report, you'll find 6 case studies of people like Music Magpie and Gardeners Direct and Thompson and Morgan and Anchor Direct, a whole load of case studies in the report, showing how other people have been successful. But Andrew, looking through the report, what were the immediate things that kind of stood out to you that you thought, that's interesting?
I think probably 2 things, Chris. I think you mentioned there Anchor. For me, Anchor is one of my favorite brands. Very clever direct-to-consumer play on small consumer electronics products. And I love the way they've built the brand.
And I think almost everyone's got something from Anchor, whether it's a power bank or a charger.
Yeah, pretty much carries around in my backpack everywhere I go. So a really clever brand that has got their Amazon strategy absolutely right. The other thing that really stood out was the bias of category focus when we looked at the report and saw that real kind of bias, particularly of 3P sellers into fashion. I think what stood out for me there wasn't necessarily the bias into fashion, it was why the other categories didn't index as highly. And if we look at Amazon as an agency and we look at external market data, we see Amazon at its strongest in home and home appliances in particular, health and beauty, and toys and games. And when we then look across the top 1,000 retailers, what's quite astounding is how many of those brands in those categories still aren't deploying a strong Amazon strategy. To give some context, is my background. I spent 5 years working in retail, so I was pretty much one of the readers of your reports for 5 to 10 years of my career, as was my business partner. So we know the brands, we know what's in there, and what we talked about in our organizations 5 years ago was omnichannel. And at that time, it meant selling in your own store, selling on your own website, maybe with a mobile app. I think what some brands are missing today is that omnichannel really is developed to be not sell in all of my channels, it's sell wherever my customer is. And in the UK today, Amazon has the largest market share across almost every product category that we've analyzed. So to see brands today that are direct consumer brands that aren't yet taking Amazon seriously and deploying a strategy for Amazon's success, that's probably the thing that stood out to me the most. I can see lots of reasons why they wouldn't. There's that fear of getting into bed with the devil and, well, why should I sell my product through somebody else's marketplace? I think there needs to be a mindset shift of not getting into bed with the devil, but the consumer is already on Amazon buying what you sell, but from one of your competitors. And for me, there's a huge opportunity there for these household name brands that have fantastic products, loyal customers, but market share that's evaporating on Amazon into their competitors. And there's a great opportunity for them to step into that and take it on as a serious sales channel.
I think it's interesting because, as you say, clothing and fashion was top from the top 1,000 sellers, and that was followed by consumer electronics. But then it was clothing, sports, and leisure, which is almost clothing again. So take those two combined, and kind of clothing and fashion is massive compared to the others. And consumer electronics, they're up there, but kind of being dwarfed, and that's without fashion accessories and footwear being included.
Yeah.
So these D2C businesses, what should their first strategies be for getting to grips with Amazon and building to get into that top 1,000 retailers? Is it a question of looking first at, should you go 1P or 3P, like sell direct to Amazon and let them be the retailer, or third party as you be the retailer? Is it a mix of the two? Is there a clear-cut answer? We know Amazon are expanding third-party sales rapidly. They're now well over 60% of total selling, and Amazon can't stock everything. So what's the answer?
Right, how long have we got, Chris? If we've got a couple of days, I can go into some detail on that. I'd certainly take a step back from where the question was as to how do we do it. I'd go back to why would you do it. For any brand that's entering Amazon, you have to start with that, why am I doing this? Because otherwise you could end up chasing vanity metrics such as turnover. You could end up cannibalizing sales. You could feel like you're achieving a lot, but not actually achieving anything of any significance. So I start with why are you doing it? And for most D2C brands, it should be profit growth or market share growth. The two ultimately are intrinsically linked. I think when you understand why you're doing it, you can then move on to the how do you do it. And probably the easiest part of that question to answer and give maybe a bit of a polarizing answer to is what selling model should you go on to? Almost always when you're talking to a D2C brand or a recognizable retailer that has their own sales channels, vendor feels appealing because you're selling in bulk, you're selling to Amazon, and there's a belief that Amazon then sell to the consumer. The reality is you've still got to drive that demand, that outputs, the outsell from Amazon to the consumer yourself. And one of the key things you lose control of in that model is price. As a retail brand, you lose control of price on vendor. So if we were talking to Boots, typical high street brand with a great range that should be selling on Amazon in volume, do they want to lose control of that price point and have Amazon competing with their website and competing with their retail footprint? Absolutely not. They then become a little bit fearful of seller because they feel that it means they've got to be shipping individual units. This is where that strategy of what is the right selling model and what is the right operating model comes into play. And almost always a D2C brand that has multiple retail channels can be strategically more advantageous on the seller model. That's not to say vendor doesn't have a role to play. It's not quite as polarizing as that, but typically you'd find them biased towards seller, but then start to scratch their heads around, God, do we really have the operating capability to make that happen? And then FBA comes into play. So there's normally a really good conversation there around making them feel comfortable about doing seller, comfortable about embracing FBA or SFP, so they have that Prime badge. But that's almost always where we'd start. Why are you doing it? How should you go about it? And then really from that point onwards, the how do you drive success, how do you drive growth is the same whether you're an SME or whether you're a high street recognizable name. It's really how do you go about it that's the critical part.
And I think there's so many things to think about. There's everything from optimizing listings, which for those that are aware of the terms probably means a whole load of A+ content, brand registry, and actually managing the brand. But then there's the fulfillment side as well. And for brands that don't want to ship single units, there are plenty of fulfillment solutions out there. How do you go about choosing a fulfillment solution? And is it a case of you really should be considering Amazon's in-house solution, FBA, or are there third parties that can do it just as well and have other advantages?
I think the biggest advantage that Amazon brings to the table is cost efficiency. I'd say my previous world, I was retail side and I worked for a brand that had significant volume and I know what their carrier rates were. I can buy I run an FBA brand separately, and even as a small brand on Amazon, and I'm doing 50 units a day with this particular brand, I can have Amazon deliver for me the next day cheaper than the major retailer I used to work with could buy it when they were shipping 40,000 units a week. So there's just some simple economic advantages to being on the Amazon FBA distribution model. The simplest way I can think of summing it up is if you're selling parcelable items, so if it's nice, easy freight, it fits in a box, you could send it via Royal Mail, Hermes or DPD, that's the absolute sweet spot for Amazon FBA. And if you can get your head and your operating model around the fact that you're putting stock into Amazon's warehouse and it's held there, not in your warehouse, you'd be hard pushed to find anybody who can deliver a next day service with pick, pack, dispatch included at the rates that Amazon offer it at. So in that very nice parcelable item space, FBA is a bit of a no-brainer, providing you don't mind having a couple of stock pools. Where it becomes a bit more challenging, whereas a brand that wants to operate a single stock pool, they want to run it out of their own warehouse, so they're not putting stock into two locations. That's where SFP, Seller Fulfilled Prime, comes in. And for those that aren't aware of it, that's basically doing your own fulfillment, but with a next day service and with the Prime badge. That's very doable. It can be very advantageous to keep that single stock pool. But where we often find brands struggling with that is Amazon's requirements for a 7-day shipping service, where a lot of retailers are still only operating a 5 to 6 day service and really struggling to drive the scale that they need to get efficiencies around a longer serving 7-day operation. So it can work and it does work, but it doesn't work for everybody. At the other end of the spectrum, you've got large bulky items, Chris, where it's a much more difficult world. What really drives that, however, is I'd always say Prime is advantageous. Having the Prime badge is advantageous. But if you go on Amazon and you look for a king size mattress, you'll be hard pushed to find a king size mattress that can be delivered on a Prime next day service. So having the Prime badge is less important. Speed of delivery is important, but for those large bulky items, it's almost always delivered via FBM and a third-party carrier. And that's where you get into the usual world of who's delivering the ugly freight, who can do the two-man carriages. And typically most brands have those relationships in place if that's what they ship.
And I think the other thing to bear in mind is, although this is a UK Amazon sellers report, many sellers are UK based but want to sell overseas, or they're overseas based and want to sell into the UK. And I think even for brands that do want a single stock pool, it's worth considering FBA from the point of fact that when you want to start selling to Germany, to France, to America, to Australia, it's so much easier to use FBA. And if you're already familiar with it, you can probably get stock shipped very, very simply. It's just the customs and forwarding information. And on that topic, and again, I'm aware that it's a UK Amazon sellers report, but the UK sellers do sell overseas. What are the top markets that you're seeing at the moment? Are they the kind of expected Germany, France, US, Australia, or are there other markets that are really exciting for Amazon?
I think you've hit the nail on the head. It's still very much what was known as the EU5. So pre-Brexit, it was UK, Germany, France, Italy, Spain. You've seen Amazon make some really good moves of dividing out different markets, Amazon Sweden, Netherlands, etc., Poland. But when you look at the market data and where is the opportunity for a brand, it's very much within Europe, UK and Germany. France, Italy, Spain drop behind that. Of course, I'm talking there at a very generic level. There are real nuances in categories where some categories are bigger in France than they are in Germany. I probably risk sounding like a broken record. I'm always conscious of this, Chris, when I talk, but we always say start with a strategy. Let the data do the talking. There's no point in going with a strategy that is to push all of those products into 4 European marketplaces just because the infrastructure allows you to do that. It will take time, effort, investment in advertising to get success and get growth. It's much more efficient usually to do that in a single market first, get to some level of scale, then repeat that. So almost always for our customers, Germany is the second biggest opportunity, but we always start with the data. If for whatever reason their product is bigger in Italy, we're off into Italy first, but we always let the data do the talking.
Makes sense. Well, Andrew, I want to thank you so much for your time today. And to find out more, there's actually an introduction from you in the Amazon, the UK Amazon sellers report. So another good reason to download it. But just before we go, the top reason for downloading the report, Andrew?
I think for me, it's the level of insight that's in there. I think there's a lot of noise around Amazon, a lot of conversation around it. I think see a report that actually gets down into the nitty-gritty of data and helps you understand who is succeeding on Amazon, how are they succeeding on Amazon. That for me is really why the report's got the value. Brilliant. Thanks so much, Andrew. And the link is just beneath the video to go and download the report for free today. So thank you for your time, Andrew. Brilliant. Thanks, Chris. Nice talking with you.